Hello and welcome to UK EdChat After Hours. I'm Martin. If you want to find out more about me, then you can find me on Twitter at ICTMagic. If you want to find out more about UK EdChat, you can either go to Twitter and search for UK EdChat, or you can find us on our website at ukedchat.com. So just before I get to my special guest, just to let you know that this is an interactive session. So if you have questions that you want to discuss live to my guest, then we do welcome those. If you're watching the repeats, wherever you're watching, just send us a reply message or comment in the notes, and we'll try to get your question answered as best we can. So today we are talking about the hopefully imminent new normal. So just to set the context, at the moment we are talking at the end of February 2021, not 2020, don't go back there again. And we are hopefully going to be opening schools within the next sort of 2 weeks or so. So putting that into context, we are talking about the new normal. And my special guest is here to discuss it with me. Special guest, could you introduce yourself, please?
Hello, hi, lovely to be here. It's been a fantastic opportunity. My name is Esmeralda Salgado. You can find me on Twitter as @botones_salgado. And I am a head of MFL in a school in Cambridgeshire and digital learning lead in the school at the same time, and head of Spanish. So a bit of 3 jobs put together. And yes, lovely to be here. I also have a blog, MFL Craft, that you can follow with ideas and practical things on digital learning, and especially on how digital tools can enhance the MFL learning experience.
Okay, super. And any links that we talk about within the webinar, then we will get those into the show notes for you. So the only link you should need to know will be in the show notes wherever you found this video. So we're discussing about the reopening of schools fairly soon. So what do you think on the school level should be the priorities for schools as schools return? Now, we say return, obviously most schools have been open and many teachers have carried on working throughout, but we're obviously talking about the return en masse. So what do you think the priority should be for the whole school?
Well, I think to start with is reconnecting with the students. I think it's going to be the human contact that the students have lacked from the last 6-7 weeks. For me, it would be definitely the best priority, the first priority in the next 2 weeks. At the same time, I think it's going to be a period of reflection. I think there should be another priority. What have we learned from all this experience, the positives, a little bit probably the negatives, where the gaps are, and how we can fill in those gaps. So for me, that is going to be the 2 main areas. And I would say as well to learn as well to reconnect with the people. The way we're going to come back is going to be quite different. In secondary schools, for example, we will be required to wear face masks, which in the classroom, which before we didn't. Obviously, as a language teacher, there's a major thing how the kids are going to interact with each other with the mask. The kind of activities we will be able to do, we won't be able to do, although we had a little bit of experience of that in September. So all those basically learning to live with the new situation and kind of gaining all the social interaction that's been lost through digital learning.
And you mentioned about secondary schools in particular. Well, secondary schools obviously have the additional burden of administering tests and things as well, which is going to be something which primary schools are not expected to do. As a primary specialist myself, I think that secondary schools actually have it much worse than primary schools in many ways, because in primary school, we have developed that relationship with the children because we have one child in one particular class with one teacher for the majority of the time. We have built up that very strong relationship, which maybe secondary school pupils haven't had in quite as much of a way in secondary. What do you think about that? How different do you think it's going to be from the usual team building and relation development that you would usually do at the start of an academic year? How different is it going to be?
I think it's going to be quite different. But on the other On the other hand, the core is going to be the same. We've been having, and most of us, we've been having lessons online. So the kids have been seeing us, and they've been taught through either Zoom or Teams or Google Meet. So that kind of disconnection has not been lost. I think it was worse in the previous lockdown from that point of view. I think in the previous lockdown, we were not as prepared, and there were a lot of lessons going on with booklets and worksheets and working through email. So I think in this particular lockdown, I think the lessons have definitely been more serious. If anything, for me, I think one of the biggest problems is not so much about how the reconnection with the students, but also the fact that we need to give them the grades and that kind of anxiety that's going to come from the students. And then it will need, when they come back in secondary schools, the work that they're doing at the moment still is going to count towards that grade. So they're basically working every day. Every day is going to be like a little exam, like a little assessment that will count towards that. And I think that's something we need to take in mind, how to keep them calm, how to keep them focused, and at the same time being positive for what they're doing without being anxious about the future. So I think that is the two different elements. Completely lost connectivity. I don't think there has been. I think the worst definitely was worse from my point of view. Was worse in the previous lockdown. I think that we've done a terrific job, generally speaking, to keep lessons going and have life lessons, which I think they've been pretty good, and they have come up as well with some positives, especially for children who like talking at the same, especially in secondary school. There are a lot of children that don't like talking in lessons, and I've noticed that thanks to these lessons online, they had a voice through the chat, through OneNote, and through the digital tools. So that thing has been something positive as well.
No, I completely agree, and I think that in the first lockdown, obviously, it was very much a firefighting exercise where it was very quickly rolled out, and teachers did an incredible job to do what they did. But obviously, within subsequent lockdowns, there was much more preparation, and people really did do amazing things throughout. And I think the profession really does need to be praised for everything it's done over the last year. So we've looked at the whole school level, and we've looked a little bit at the classroom level. What about as a head of department, maybe talking about the staff that you are responsible for? What kind of measures or strategies are you going to put in place to maybe make them feel better about coming into the classroom? And maybe what kind of CPD on the back of so much missed time, or maybe opportunities and skills that you've learned during the lockdown, would you like to take forward?
Yes, definitely. I think the main thing here again is reflection and sharing good practice, and having, when you have a team, not just to have a meeting just to talk about paperwork, but actually to have a meeting to discuss ideas, to have a reflection, to see what worked for me, what worked for other person. I must admit as well that we've been using Teams, so we've been having our departmental meetings as normal, as much as we also got the chat in Teams as well. So we've been sharing resources, and in fact, as a good thing, is because of these lockdowns, we've been sharing more good practice that we would have ever done and that we have ever done. And because people have been learning new skills, they've just been putting the new skills into Teams. They've been texting each other about the new skills. So there's been definitely like a learning curve within the department, which I think has been really, really nice. The other aspect to take into account, the same as with the children, is the anxiety. Different from the children, there's some members of the staff that they may not feel comfortable to be back at school, or like the whole school bag, wearing face masks. They may have conditions, health conditions. So there is something as well to be understanding, and I think it's very important to act to be a good listener and acting as a coach at the same time, not just as a head of department or as a leader.
I just want to read you a tweet which happened on the chat, which is on the same topic just before the webinar going out live now. And if you want to see the archive of the chat, you can do that in the show notes. Look at the link there. But the tweet says, everybody progresses at their own different rate within the classroom context. We never talk about catch up, so why now? So obviously, the government is very much focusing on the idea of catch up, and there's been lots of ideas of catch up in the media, the fact that there is obviously large gaps. I just want to get your take on that. So what do you think about the idea of catch up?
Well, I don't like the word
how.
So sorry, I got you in there, but I just don't like the idea of catch up because it implies already there's a negative impact on it and a negative connotation already from like implying that the children they are not at the level they should be. And I don't think that's the right state of mind to go back to schools at all. So I think I don't when they said about lost learning, for example, and catch up, I don't think that's true. There's been learning, but just it's been different learning. And maybe we have not advanced so much from the point of view the EQUA syllabus, the GCSE, the A-level syllabus, but we've been gaining in digital expertise. We've been getting quite a lot of learning on how to be independent, on how to do research, on how to collaborate digitally. And some of my students at the beginning didn't know, for example, how to share a document with OneNote. They didn't know how to share a document. They didn't really grasp the concept of OneDrive. Especially we're talking about year 7s and the year 8s, just the 11 and the 12 years old, and now they can do it as a second nature. So I think they've definitely gained skills, and at the same time they've also gained the skills in the subjects. From my point of view, it's true that we haven't done as much oral work, but then we've been doing. They've had a lot of opportunity to revise the writing, to revise the reading, to revise the listening. I can record my voice in OneNote, and they've been listening to a lot of time to my own voice. I've had the opportunity to do videos as well, so they've been gaining a lot of other skills that I'm hoping that when we come back, it's not going to be lost at all. It's going to be just a question of putting those skills into oral for me, for example. So I think they will catch up. There's no loss. They just will. And they will grow in their own learning, and that's how they've been learning different skills. And I hate the word of lost learning. I don't think there's been lost learning. I mean, in some particular occasions and particular circumstances, they may have been, but I don't like the generalization of the negativity of the whole situation, because we worked really hard, and the kids have worked very hard as well.
Absolutely. And just to say that a member of our live audience has just agreed with you as well. So if you do have any comments, then please do make them in the chat if you're watching live, or please do comment wherever you're watching this, if you're watching the repeat. So we've touched on it, but could you maybe talk a little bit about where you see the development of well-being? Because obviously everybody's had a bit of an impact. I feel like I'm sometimes trapped by this little square, teaching online and talking online and doing almost everything online through these little squares. So when you go back into the classroom and maybe in the wider school context, how do you see the provision for well-being being rolled out?
Well, I think from the point of view of the students, it should be something about having their voice heard. I think that, we've never had the word well-being as used as we've done in the last few weeks, which I think is really good. Before, it's something that it was just implied, but nobody really stopped to reflect on the effects on it. And I think there's an opportunity to slow down, to rethink, and to give voice to the students, and at the same time, from the point of view of the teachers as well, to think about and reflect about workload. For example, things like I think I was bringing in the chat parents' evenings. We used to do the parents' evening for 3-4 hours face to face. Now we've done it online, 5 minutes, much more efficient, and you can do it from your home. So that's already, for a family and work balance, already is a positive. So it's like little things like that. Things as well like CPD, for example, that before, although it's lovely to have CPD and going to London and going to a hotel, it was the only way of CPD. I think it's lovely that we've been exploring all these other different webinars and videos that you can see on YouTube, and the sharing of good practices. I think from both sides, I think it's about being heard. Another element, for example, that we've been implementing in my school is to have well-being days. So we do have a new job, which is the well-being lead, and we've had like theater nights where online we just been yes, all the school, all the staff watching a particular theater play. So it's like having these kind of wellbeing sessions planned in the CPD or the school throughout the year, and I think that this has never been better opportunity to do so and to reflect on that.
So you've touched on CPD. Do you think that there's going to be some sort of blended CPD in the future, where there's going to be an element of digital learning and also live learning, and maybe what kind of strengths each one plays? Just to read out or to paraphrase a tweet that many people said in the chat prior to the webinar, is that there was actually an overload of CPD in many ways. So maybe there was too much choice because obviously YouTube is vast, and the BBC content is fantastic for the pupils, but that was obviously created by somebody, where we don't have the creation of CPD. We have to do that ourselves. So where do you see the future of CPD going?
I think it would be a blended situation, but I think I agree with you entirely. And thinking about well-being as well, about being selective. I think that's very important. I think the role of the middle managers here and what I think is vital, and to decide as a department where is our vision, where we want to go, what we all should be doing, and then planning the CPD and what we're going to be doing as a department forward from that point of view, rather than just trying to do everything, because it can be very overwhelming. You open your Twitter accounts and you can see webinars coming, and sometimes you feel under the pressure that you need to go to everything, and that's not the case, and you shouldn't be feeling guilty that you should at all. So I think it's good to have a plan, and it shouldn't be an individual plan. It can be an individual plan as well, because you could be interested in some particular aspect of the research that someone else in the department is not, but it should be something definitely from a department point of view where it's a shared vision, and that shared vision should also be shared by the whole school. So we all working towards the same movement, a little bit like a pyramid kind of shape, and I think that will help, and I think definitely will be blended. I don't see any more like all that have to go to live courses like we used to in the past. I think it will be live, but digitally live. And I think another good aspect as well is the sharing of good practice, which I think is part of the CPD as well as a school. I think before we used to be very wary of who was coming into our classrooms. Some schools are better than others, I know that, but it still is an element of nervousness. Someone is going to come to observe it, to come, even if it's a colleague. And I think this situation of having things online when you don't know who's hearing, sometimes it's been the parents in the background, I think it has opened our teaching. I think that we've been more generous with our resources, more generous with the things that we've been sharing and doing. And I think that's all this counts towards CPD in a positive way. I'm a very positive person, as you can probably guess.
Yep.
But I really can see with also negativities, but it's about focusing on what can we move forward and what to do with the situation that is not ideal, basically. But I think that that's going to be something really, really good from the CPD point of view. I think it can be reimagined completely. But it has to have a little bit. Sorry.
So obviously most teachers have access to the technology to allow blended learning to happen, but our pupils are not so fortunate in many cases. So how can the digital gap be narrowed? Because obviously we're discussing about the fact that digital blended learning is probably going to become a mainstay of the classroom going forward.
Very difficult. I mean, I don't have an answer. I don't think there is any magic, wand to say this is the solution. The two elements here, I think there needs to be a national strategy for that. I think this has already, without becoming political, it has definitely exposed how badly some areas in the UK are regarding digital competence, but because they don't have the digital, basically, tools to do it. And I think that it should be an investment and a strategy for that. So this doesn't that we are well prepared, and obviously that we can capitalize with everything that we've been learning. And at the same time, I think it's an element as well from the school point of view to make a little bit of the effort. I know that with some school we they're not likely to have a laptop for every single student. The students can afford it, but definitely every student has got a phone. So it's about choosing. Now you can take the learning with you for outside the classroom for the first time ever. You can take your maths, you can take your history with you, and I think we should capitalize on that. And everybody has got a mobile. So what can we? It's about what can we do, looking at what our students have and what are the resources from the school. And you could do simple things like a little bit of research, a little bit of using a particular app, without having to completely crazy about it. I have to have a completely 100% digital move forward. So there are little movements that we can start doing, and at the same time, I think it's true that we need to be at the same time be backed up by money and investment from the government. Unfortunately, that is not something that we teachers can do about.
And we have had a previous chat about that on the ukEdChat.com website about narrowing the digital divide. So please do search for that if you're interested in that particular topic. So do you think there are any silver linings that have come from the pandemic and the implications for schools because of that? Do you think that there are any silver linings that teachers can draw from this?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, everything I've been talking about has been a silver lining in a way. From the personalization of the learning experience, thanks to digital tools, from the focus on well-being that can happen from now on, and from the way that we're gonna think about CPT, from the way as well that we can start reshaping the curriculum as much as we can, from even from the point of view of the GCSE and A level. I wouldn't be surprised if there's going to be a reform as a consequence of what is happening at the moment and these 2 years of non-exams occurring. So I think definitely there is going to be an opportunity to reflect on the teaching and learning of the whole country. Just that is a massive silver lining. But at the same time as well, I think it's been the generosity of the people, how much people have supported each other as educationalists, and I've never seen that before. I've been on Twitter for many years. I've never seen the movement and the support and people sharing lessons and sharing good practice and opening Facebooks and groups as I have seen now. And I think that is a major silver lining and something to celebrate. Rather than there have not been obviously a pandemic, but as we have it, I think we need to harness the positives from it and move forward.
Absolutely, that's fantastic. Can you just remind everybody where they can find you online? So your Twitter handle and also your blog.
Shall I write it down in the chat if you want to? It's basically at I can just add Botones Salgado. And my blog is MFL Craft. Okay, so I can give you, I can give you the details, and you can put them with with any paperwork that comes with this.
That's super. So we'll make sure it's in the show notes for everybody if you have any supplement questions. Esmeralda, that's been absolutely fantastic. Wonderful to talk to you. Thank you ever so much. And thank you everybody for watching, and goodbye.
Thank you.